Hey garden friends, it's Mel with Sucky Crafts, and today I'll be explaining on why you should plant your succulents in terracotta pots. So I have here an array of different containers that I use. So I have here the terracotta. This is a plain nursery pot plastic. This is glazed ceramic, and this is hypertufa. So the reason why I recommend that you plant your succulents in terracotta or hypertufa in this case is because they're breathable materials. So this is made out of clay and it's unglazed, so that means that it is porous. So water will seep out of it when you water your plant and air will flow through it to dry it out. And that's why I think it's the perfect container to plant succulents in, especially if you're just starting your succulent collection. You'll have a way better chance of growing healthy succulents if you start right off with terracotta. So hypertufa is sort of similar. So it's a porous material, so it's very light. And hypertufa, there's many recipes out there, but I make it with perlite, sand, and cement. And I mix all that up, make a mud, and I make them by hand, I should say. And this is a little square one where I used, I believe it was a Tupperware that I bought at, I think, the Dollar Tree. And I made this hypertufa pot out of, and it's been years. It's been used over and over again, and it works perfectly. As you can see, maybe behind me on the shelf, you can see some that are living in hypertufa pots, and they do so good, just as good as they do in terracotta pots. So I want to talk about the plastic. Plastic isn't anything. Succulents still grow well in plastic. I don't want to say that it's the wrong material to grow them in, because this is how we buy them. We buy them in nursery pots at our local garden centers. But it's a temporary kind of container where eventually they'll need to be transplanted into something different. Plastic, it's not porous. It's hard to recycle. Some nursery pots, especially the black nursery pots, did you know that those can't be recycled? Isn't that weird? That's a whole nother video, obviously, but it's not a very sustainable container to grow your succulents in unless you're using them over and over and over again. And I think that that's the perfect way to actually recycle plastic is by using it as many times as you can before actually putting it in the bin. But as I was saying, this is a temporary kind of container because this gets really hot really fast, and succulents don't necessarily like to have their roots really hot, even though they can take it. That's why I think that it's more of a temporary container, and I keep repeating that because it is. I can't stress enough what a difference it makes for a plant that comes from a garden center in a nursery pot to be planted in a terracotta pot and how well they grow. Because if I were to plant the same plant in these two containers, the one in the terracotta pot will grow faster and healthier compared to one that I keep in a plastic pot, if that makes any sense. But I just wanted to mention that it's not a bad thing to have your succulents in plastic, but they're better off in something like terracotta or hypertufa. So I don't want to be a broken record there because I kind of got into that little motion there. So I'll stop with the plastic pots and I'll move on to the glazed ceramic. So this is a bowl, and it, like I said, it's glazed ceramic and it's not breathable. And it didn't have a drainage hole, and I drilled a really big one there. It kind of broke off, but it still works. It is very important to provide drainage for containers like these because it didn't come with drainage. I made it myself. So if I would plant this without the drainage, the succulent would retain too much moisture because it's not a breathable material, and it would eventually rot, especially if I have it in a shaded area where there's no sun around, no airflow. So if you're going to plant your succulents in something like this where it's not meant to be a container, always drill a hole at the bottom and you'll have way better luck. All I have to say is if you're gonna plant them in something like this, you're gonna have to water way less. You're gonna have to cut back a lot. I tend to water my succulents that I plant in these containers once a month, if that. So That's all there really is to it. And I wanted to plant these sedum pork and beans, one of my favorite succulents, in this terracotta pot just to finish it off. And I'll make some space for myself. Move these over here. And I'll start off with some succulent soil, of course. And I'll kind of leave some space here, just right there. And I'll take these out and I'll kind of squeeze them gently and have that pop out. And I'm gonna try and keep them intact into those clusters. And I'll put that right in the middle there. So as you can see, I didn't tease any of that soil off or anything because it's not really necessary because my pot is big enough to fit them all. Now, if I was trying to fit a lot more in there, then I would kind of take it apart, but it's not necessary right now. So as for the second one right there, make my well. Press them in there just like that. And I'm gonna put some more soil right on top. Don't they look better in terracotta? I think that it's kind of like a match made in heaven, succulents and terracotta. You really can't go wrong. And I highly recommend it. And if you are the type to keep your succulents in plastic pots, you should really try to purchase some terracotta pots and plant them in there, and you will see before your eyes the difference it makes. Just because it's porous and the air can just flow right through them. So I will just water this and leave it in a partly shaded area and watch them grow. So I hope you learned something new today and inspired you to go out and get your hands into some dirt, maybe, possibly. But until next time, bye garden friends. Oh hey, you're still here. So while I tend to my garden, why don't you hit the subscribe so we can keep in touch.